It should have been just another mid-afternoon stroll through Washington, D.C. An 18-year-old African-American student, fresh off getting accepted for a CIA internship, was making her way home from school when two patrol officers pulled up alongside her and accused her of theft. No matter how calmly she explained herself, they laughed, slapped on handcuffs, and hauled her down to the station. But everything shifted the moment she produced her CIA ID in court. By then, dusk had settled over the city, the last sunlight vanishing behind brick row houses and casting long shadows on the cracked pavement. Street lamps buzzed to life, pushing back the early spring gloom. She tightened the straps of her backpack, pulled the hood of her black sweatshirt up, and picked up her pace, already picturing the acceptance letter, waiting at home, a full scholarship to Howard University, and her mother's proud plans for a special dinner. A harsh shout shattered her daydream. "Hey, you stop right there." Startled, she froze, heart pounding. Two officers strode toward her from their parked cruiser, hands hovering near their holsters. The older, broad-shouldered one, with a flushed complexion, Officer Jordan, barked orders. The younger, stern-mouthed partner, Officer Shaw, closed in. "Hands up," Jordan snarled, and she obeyed, palms out. "I'm just heading home," she stammered. "I live a few blocks away." Shaw circled, her eyes cold. "You match the description," he said flatly. "What description?" she asked, voice trembling. Without warning, Jordan grabbed her wrist and twisted it behind her back, forcing her forward with brutal efficiency. "Don't resist," he growled. "I'm not resisting," she insisted, recalling her mother's advice. "Stay calm, don't argue, don't make sudden moves." The handcuffs bit into her skin as Shaw rifled through her bag, tossing aside her debate club notes, a half-eaten sandwich, even her physics textbook. Then he found the slim pouch. He ripped it open, revealing her CIA badge. "What the hell is this?" he barked. Her throat went dry. "It's my internship ID," she managed. Jordan let out a derisive laugh. "You expect me to believe a high schooler works for the CIA?" he sneered, waving the badge like a joke in her face. "It's genuine," she murmured, tears brimming at her eyes. Jordan scoffed and tucked the badge into his pocket. "We'll verify it back at the station." Shaw seized her arm roughly and shoved her toward the cruiser. All around, cell phones recorded the scene. An onlooker held up a camera across the street, but nobody stepped in or spoke up. She slid into the back seat, the door thudding shut behind her. Her cuffed hands shook in her lap, the cold steel cutting into her skin. She shut her eyes tight, fighting back tears. Everything she'd worked for, every late-night study session and debate club meeting, felt as though it was crumbling away into the night air. They didn't even ask her name. As the squad car drove off, Zoe Marshall's carefully built future seemed to disappear with every rolling block. Under the harsh fluorescent lights of the holding cell, she sat rigid on a bolted metal bench, her hoodie damp with panic-induced sweat. Officers passed by the narrow window. Some offered indifferent glances, others ignored her entirely. No food, no water, no opportunity to call her mother. Time stretched into a haze of agony. Suddenly, heavy footsteps approached. The door swung open and Jordan reappeared, a grim smirk on his face. "Stand up," he commanded. Her legs buckled as she rose, and he steered her down a cramped hallway to a small interrogation room, scented faintly of bleach and old perspiration. Shaw sat behind a scratched metal table, coldly gesturing for her to sit. Once she nodded, he opened a thin folder. "You know why you're here," he said. She met his gaze, voice firm despite her dry throat. "No, I don't. I didn't do anything." Jordan snorted. Shaw continued as if unperturbed. "Armed robbery at Sammy's Quick Mart witness places you on scene." "That's impossible," she replied, voice shaking but resolute. "I was at school. Teachers and classmates can confirm it." Shaw merely shrugged dismissively. Zoe's fists clenched on the table as her cuffs bit into her wrists, a painful reminder that her word alone wasn't enough. A bead of sweat traced down her temple as she forced her voice steady. "You're mistaken," she said. "Please check my school records. Ask my debate coach or the bus driver." "I haven't done anything wrong." Jordan pushed off the wall and loomed over the table, his shadow swallowing the light. "Save it," he snapped. "We've dealt with smart mouths and fake IDs, no difference here." Shaw tapped the file with a slow fingertip. "You're in deep trouble, kid. Better start thinking about a deal." Panic flared in her chest, but she gritted her teeth against the injustice. Though her hands shook under the table, her voice remained calm and firm. "I'd like to call my mother." Silence stretched until Shaw's jaw clenched and Jordan gave a lazy shake of his head. After we're done, he said. The interrogation dragged on. Every explanation, every insistence fell on ears that seemed closed before she'd even walked in. Each denial drew a sneer. Each plea was ignored. When they finally left her alone, the door slammed shut like a verdict. She buried her forehead in her cuffed hands, the cold steel biting into her skin. Time slowed to a torturous crawl until an older woman in plain clothes entered her badge reading Detective Adams. She moved with quiet authority to the bench where the teenager sat. Miss Marshall, she said softly, let's get you processed. Adams removed the cuffs with a click, and though relief washed over her, it was fleeting. She was led through fingerprinting, her palms pressed against cold glass, each beep of the scanner echoing in the sterile air, and then into the harsh flash of a mugshot. Finally, Adams pointed at a payphone bolted to the wall. One call, she said. Zoe swallowed, lifted the receiver, and dialed the number she knew better than her own. It rang 3 times before her mother answered. Hello? Relief and fear mingled in Dina's voice. Mama, she whispered, they arrested me. A sharp intake of breath sounded through the line. Where are you? The precinct, she said, voice cracking. I haven't done anything. They say I robbed a store. Inside the cell, Sam froze. She was 18, a student with big dreams, now treated like a criminal on suspicion alone. Her heart pounded a slow, heavy rhythm. Somewhere beneath the fear, anger flickered alive. Suddenly, keys rattled and genuine hope rushed in. The door creaked open to reveal the family lawyer, Mr. Klein, in a slightly rumpled suit, and behind him her mother Braid, loosened eyes wide with relief. Mama Zoe gasped, rising before an officer's sharp bark froze her in place. Dana pressed a hand to her chest, fighting the urge to dash forward, but in her eyes was the fierce promise that this fight was far from over. Justice was coming. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but her lips pressed together firmly. Hold on, sweetie, she said softly. We'll get you out of here. Mr. Clean gave a small nod of reassurance to Zoe before turning to the guard. I need a word with my client, he said crisply. The officer hesitated, then signaled toward a corner. 5 minutes. Clint pulled over a chair and motioned for Zoe to sit across from him. Leaning in, his voice dropped low and steady. Listen closely, Zoe. Don't say a word to anyone unless I'm in the room. No explanations, no arguments. Got it? Zoe nodded, her throat too tight to speak. He glanced at Gloria, who was wringing her hands by the glass, then refocused on Zoe. They claim an eyewitness spotted you near the robbery, and they're trashing your badge as a fake. It's real? Zoe blurted, voice cracking. It's part of my internship. I believe you, Clay replied. Soon the court will too. But right now they have enough to hold you overnight, maybe longer. Gloria stepped forward, her voice trembling. You can't leave her here, she pleaded. She's just a child. She's 18, the guard reminded sharply. Mr. Clean sighed, his brow furrowing. I'm on it. I'll request an emergency hearing. But we need more than your word. We need solid proof. Zoe lifted her chin, summoning strength. My debate coach, my teachers, my classmates. I was at school all day, she said. Good, Clean answered. I'll start gathering statements tonight. Hang in there, Shem. The guard tapped his watch and Clean rose, gathering his papers. We'll be back, he promised. Gloria pressed her palm to the glass, tears finally falling. I love you, she mouthed. I love you too. Zoe returned, pressing her hand against the barrier as if to bridge the gap. Hours stretched into what felt like days. Eventually, Detective Adams reappeared, silently sliding a bottle of water and crackers through the slot. Zoe clutched the bottle, letting the cool plastic soothe her palms. She drank slowly, each sip loosening the knot in her throat. Lying back against the bench, she stared at the ceiling, her mind racing through fears and hopes. Would the CIA support her? Would her teachers rally in time? Could anyone believe a young black woman over 2 seasoned officers her dreams? Howard University, the internship, still beckoned beyond these concrete walls. If she could just hold on a little longer, she thought she might still reach them. Dawn arrived gray and heavy. A new officer came to escort her to the federal courthouse for arraignment. She was ushered into a sheriff's van with 2 older women who met her gaze with tired, weary eyes. No one spoke, only chains clinked and the engine droned. Through barred windows, Zoe caught fleeting views of streets she'd once walked freely, now alien and distant. As the van pulled up to the courthouse, reporters clustered outside, cameras aimed like weapons ready to capture the next chapter of her fight for justice. Benny lowered her gaze, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, and the metal cuffs bit into her wrist with every step. A bailiff guided her down a long corridor to a small holding cell where Mr. Clean stood waiting, papers clutched under his arm. His expression was grave, but he gave her a reassuring nod. "Ready?" he whispered. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. The courtroom hummed with low conversation as people found their seats. Reporters exchanged hushed comments, pens poised. Attorneys rifled through documents. Deputy marshals stood rigid against the paneled walls. The vast wood-paneled chamber felt overwhelming, and in her plain detention jumpsuit, she seemed impossibly small. Taking her seat beside Mr. Clean at the defense table, she folded her hands in her lap to steady their trembling. Opposite them, the Assistant District Attorney Branson arranged her files with crisp precision. Her tailored suit, sharp heels, and sleek bun spoke of calculated confidence. She never spared Benny a glance. When Judge Preston entered, a woman in her 60s, short gray hair, framing eyes that missed nothing, everyone rose. The clerk began reading the charges: suspicion of armed robbery, obstruction of justice, and possession of a forged government ID. Each allegation struck Benny's chest like a hammer. She stifled her breath, but kept her expression composed. "Miss Marshall," Judge Preston's clear, authoritative voice cut through the murmur. "How do you plead not guilty?" Benny replied, steadier than she felt her throat raw. Branson rose first. "Your Honor," she began smoothly, "the state has compelling evidence that Ms. Marshall participated in the Jefferson Avenue convenience store robbery. An eyewitness placed her near the scene, dressed as described, and in possession of a counterfeit CIA badge." Mr. Clean stood buttoning his jacket with deliberate calm. "Your Honor," he countered, "the defendant is an honor student with no prior record, present at school all day, with numerous witnesses. The badge she carried is genuine. She is part of a classified federal internship." An audible scoff from Branson drew the judge's raised hand. "Enough. We will hear both sides." Branson motioned to the first witness, Officer Jordan, who strode to the stand immaculate in uniform and brimming with self-assurance. Sworn in, he recounted seeing Benny loitering near the store, matching the robber's description and behaving suspiciously. He dismissed her CIA badge as a crude forgery. Benny clenched her jaw. None of it was true. When Mr. Clean approached the witness stand, he spoke softly but firmly. "Officer, you claim the defendant tried to flee." "Yes," Jordan replied confidently. "Yet in your initial report," Clean continued, "you also noted she complied with every command." For the first time, Jordan's confidence wavered. "I meant she looked like she was about to run." He amended his certainty, faltering under cross-examination. "Assume, did you?" the lawyer said smoothly, watching the officer shift in his seat. "No further questions," he added, returning to the defense table. Next on the stand was the supposed eyewitness, Travis Brown, in a rumpled shirt and worn shoes. He wouldn't look at her. The prosecutor gently guided him through his story. He claimed to have seen a young woman in a dark hoodie sprinting from the store after hearing an alarm, and swore he believed it was her. During cross-examination, the defense attorney struck precisely. "Mr. Brown," he asked, "on what day did this happen?" Brown froze. "Monday," he blurted. The attorney glanced at his notes. "And you're employed at Goodwin's garage?" Brown shrugged. The attorney arched an eyebrow. "Interesting, since Goodwin's is closed on Mondays." A murmur rippled across the courtroom. Brown stammered, he must have been mistaken, but the damage was done. Or perhaps, the lawyer suggested quietly, you weren't there at all. Though the prosecutor objected, Brown's testimony lay in tatters. When it was the defense's turn, their attorney presented affidavits from teachers, classmates, debate club members, even her bus driver, all confirming she followed her usual route home during the robbery. Then came the clincher. A representative from the CIA dressed in a conservative Navy suit quietly took the stand. The badge Miss Marshall displayed was issued by our agency as part of a secure internship program. She testified, invoking confidentiality to refrain from further detail. Judge Preston leaned forward, her voice crisp. Given the contradictions in the state's witnesses, the credible alibi evidence, and confirmation of Ms. Marshall's legitimate federal role, I find no grounds to proceed. She paused, and then case dismissed. The gavel's thud reverberated like thunder. For an instant, the young woman sat stunned, then understanding and relief washed over her. Her mother broke into tears, covering her mouth. Their lawyer offered a gentle squeeze of reassurance. It's done. Yet she knew this chapter wasn't quite over. Rising deliberately, she met the eyes of the two officers now frozen in place, anger etched on their faces. No fear remained, only a quiet triumph coursing through her. Stepping into the brilliant sunlight outside the courthouse, she felt its warmth on her face, the glare almost a blessing after the dim courtroom. Her mother supported her with a steady hand on her shoulder. Their lawyer flanked them, satisfaction flickering in his gaze. Reporters shouted questions, but security kept them at bay. She kept her head low, every muscle taut, mind still racing. She longed to blend into the crowd, to return to the life she'd built, but she understood there was no undoing what had happened. Later cocooned in her kitchen, under a familiar quilt, sipping hot tea scented with lemon and lavender, her mother whispered, "You did it." She nodded, trying to believe it. Yet even in the safety of home, her thoughts circled back to the officers, the false testimony, the moments no one would hear her voice. The days that followed passed in a whirlwind as she briefly returned to school to complete her finals, forever changed by the ordeal. Her classmates murmured in the corridors, some offered awkward smiles while others couldn't meet her eyes. Her teachers were more forthcoming, patting her on the shoulder and praising her courage, yet she still felt removed, as if watching from outside herself. One afternoon, her debate coach summoned her to his office and her mother sat beside her, never letting go of her arm. Detective Adams joined them, dressed casually but with a hard expression. "We're building a case," the lawyer said plainly, "not just against those two officers, but against the system that let them act with impunity." Adams slid a folder across the desk, heavy with other victims' statements, photographs, internal reports, evidence of misconduct stretching back years. "It won't be simple," he warned. "They'll resist, deny everything, try to smother you with lies." She looked down at the files, her stomach tightening. She remembered those lonely hours in the cell, the sting of the cuffs, the way they'd pocketed her badge. She thought of the countless others who'd never had any recourse. Looking up, she met his gaze. "I'm ready," she said. The effort began quietly, a formal complaint, a civil rights lawsuit, appearances before the Police Oversight Board. One by one, witnesses came forward, and the local media seized on the story. Teen cleared of robbery, sues police, CIA intern, exposes department corruption. Some outlets hailed her as a hero, others questioned her motives. She tuned out the noise, focusing on the work mornings at school, afternoons, gathering evidence, evenings, prepping for her first semester at Howard University. A CIA liaison reached out privately with words of support, no official endorsement, but no abandonment either. Then midsummer brought the turning point. The eyewitness who'd falsely identified her admitted under oath that he'd been paid by those officers to lie. The fortress of denial collapsed. The city settled, paying her college tuition and issuing a public apology, while also pledging sweeping reforms, stronger oversight, new leadership in the precinct. The deal mattered more for its admission of guilt and promise of change than the dollar figure. That evening, she and her mother sat together on the back porch under a star-filled sky. Her mother draped a blanket over her shoulders, proud and silent. "You made a difference," she said at last. "We did it together." Her daughter replied, a small smile lifting her face. August arrived humid and hopeful. She packed her things, textbooks, her laptop, the Howard acceptance letter, and her CIA badge tucked safely inside her backpack as a reminder of all she'd accomplished. On her first morning at Howard, she crossed the sunlit quad, the laughter and energy of campus all around her. A text from her CIA mentor popped up. "We're proud of you. Stay focused. The future needs you." She slipped her phone away, squared her shoulders, and let go of the past. No longer just a survivor, she was now a builder, ready to shape a better world. 4 months later, the world she knew has shifted in ways she never imagined. Campus life at Howard hums with energy, but she's no longer just another student. She's earned a quiet reputation as a thoughtful leader. She co-chairs a new student-run panel on civil rights and law enforcement, where local activists, legal experts, and even formerly hesitant city officials gather to share ideas. Her own experience, once a private nightmare, now fuels constructive conversation, and she watches as graduates in suits and uniforms mingle over coffee, devising real policy proposals rather than empty promises. Back in Wichita Falls, the police department isn't the same either. New recruits arrive with mandatory bias awareness training already under their belts, and every officer's body camera now streams live footage to an independent civilian board. The precinct building has a fresh coat of paint, in a glass-walled community room where residents can attend open forums, something unimaginable mere months ago. Even Jordan and Shaw have faded into the past, their disciplinary hearings concluded, and their badges returned to evidence lockers. Their replacements introduce themselves with handshake-first confidence. Their uniforms crisp, their attitudes noticeably different. At home, her mother has started organizing monthly courage dinners where neighbors share stories and strategize on local reforms. Invitations often note, "Bring your dignity, leave your fear." Meanwhile, her CIA internship has blossomed into a mentorship. She now advises on community outreach programs, ensuring young people of color feel protected, not profiled. None of it happened overnight. It took patience, persistence, and that unshakable belief that dignity is defended, not demanded. 4 months on, the echoes of injustice still ripple through City Hall and college hallways alike. But they serve now as reminders that when one voice refuses to be silenced, it can inspire many more to speak their truths and reshape the world around them. This story shows us that justice can be sparked by silence and meticulous preparation rather than spectacle. The clear message is that every individual has the power to change the system if they gather evidence, rally allies, and maintain faith. Now it's your turn. How does this story resonate with you? Have you witnessed or experienced something similar? Share your personal perspective. Do you think the key lies in wise silence, or is more decisive action needed? And when do you believe racial discrimination will truly end? Comment below to ignite the conversation. Will we see a world free of racial bias before 2050, or is it still an elusive dream?